Welcome to another edition of What the Fuck Happenings here in Mendham. Don't like this camera angle much, but we'll live with it. Nothing at all professional or interesting. And images over there. I haven't figured out how to use Linux to do certain things like image editing. They have a nice program for it, but you just have to learn a lot. It's not like other programs. You can't just do the same. Yeah. Anyway, you know how that is. Different software and all the buttons are different. They say they look the same, but they don't do the same thing. Anyway, something obvious like cut and paste just doesn't work the same way. It's sort of annoying, this learning curve part of life. But anyway, everybody has to deal with it. So it is sort of interesting. Just I'm like 95% Linux now, and it's okay. I keep promising to make some videos on it, but I haven't gotten to it yet. So I'll try to do that this week. So this week I did make a couple of videos to the whatever, apologies guy. Didn't hear from his lawyer or anything. And generally speaking, I would like to have some sort of adult conversations with people who, if they want to defend almost anything, just because it's just an inquiry into why people are just such fucking assholes. I mean, why? Because it just seems so obvious, and you're just like, how can people be so wrong about so many things, and so belligerently wrong? So that's sort of the theme for the year. It's kind of it's just been been just a lousy couple of months for me. Cat's dying, and I just fucked up my back, and so anyway, the whole holiday thing hasn't worked out very well. It just occurred to me that, oh yes, it's around New Year's or something, right? Like any day now. And so having no idea for this video, essentially I was like, well, I could just do some kind of resolution thing and some idea of progressing into the future. But I still don't have much of a clue how to do that, how to make this channel more useful. And so I do have this idea, the website idea of getting this all written down into kind of hunks of concise arguments, detailing stuff like the imposition argument, which isn't complicated. I mean, would you go to Las Vegas with somebody else's money, and would it not worry you? It's not even worth a thought of having fun losing their money, which I think is a reasonable metaphor for what having kids is. You're essentially doing something selfish. You want to play with the children, and and you're risking the fact that they might not like the game you're playing, bad touch and all. I mean, I feel myself kind of bad touched, molested in a way by my parents' indifference to the whole project. Not that they were bad parents, they didn't do any abusive things, but just the whole neglecting to have a plan of any kind, and really caring whether they had a plan. It's nature, everybody's doing it, and that's, you gotta come, if you're gonna do something that's gonna basically be like gambling with somebody else's money, I think you have to have a plan. You have to be sure you're gonna win, or pretty sure, kind of sure. You have to, it has to have occurred to you that this isn't a risky project. It's all good. And you wouldn't do it if you didn't think it was all good. And the fact that people don't even think about it. I mean, you have to just ask, how big an asshole are you? You don't even think about the jeopardy you're putting somebody else in? You don't even consider it? I mean, it never even occurred to you to consider it? Eee. That's really dumb. and it's asshole-ish in the sense that you can't be really that stupid. So you must have considered it for a moment and just said, fuck them. Then that's the asshole part. So yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to understand how people deal with those facts of life and how they decided to become assholes. Because I don't think, like I said, you can't even, I don't think you can make, literate statements and not be capable of saying, oh yeah, I do understand there's a risk and I just don't care. I mean, you have to just tell the truth. You just don't care. And I just want people to say that instead of, pretending they considered it and somehow they found a rational reason to say it's okay when they didn't find a rational reason. They just said, fuck it. I don't want to be bothered thinking. I'll just be a doer, not a thinker. That kind of thing. Something like that anyway. It's like religion or anything. It's all this stuff. It's all such bullshit. You just say, how could people fall for something so fucking stupid? Out of some tradition, even worse. Because, I've been watching a lot of videos from the past in the sense of old films from the 50s and 60s on physics. And, you can kind of understand that the past had a lot of liabilities and they were quite disabled in a way, quite crippled and dysfunctional. But they did what they had to do, and for their time they did very well, you could argue. But you can kind of understand that most things out of that traditional period, out of history, you've got to be suspect of any idea or any notion of right answer, because history is just full of this waffling and going all over the place and changes and they're all silly ideas in a way. I mean, there's no consistent running theme of some sort of idea of what it is to be alive and human besides I feel like it. I mean, there's not a lot of any kind of complex thinking that goes on, and then even the philosophers are kind of silly, they're just talking shit. They might say a few eloquent words in one area, one subject, and then you turn to another subject and all their own prejudices just come screaming out of their rhetoric. You just see the huge biases and the hypocrisies. So it's kind of like Sam Harris, he's pretending to be a guy who's thinking higher, doing this, I figured out there's no free will. And, I've sort of figured out that we're, byproducts of our environment and, a few things. And yet you can see when you test that to his little personal needs of, I have my little trophy wife or whatever she is. I don't know. I've never seen his wife. And we're going to play domestication together. and it's clearly his personal life doesn't have anything to do with the rules of logic and, recognizing you're being played by traditional values and traditional notions of a good time, because everybody else said it was. What's his plan? What does he think's going to take place? He knows the context of the world. He sees Donald Trump get elected. He knows the world was in trouble before that happened. And he's going to inject people into it to what? Struggle, be abused, the tyranny that's possible, the disasters that are possible, and just throw them into that really, really ugly playpen. I mean, it's a disgusting playpen, and you're going to put your kid in it. It's got all kinds of bacteria in it and diseases and shit, and it's just a completely unsafe, dirty, messy thing. And I'm supposed to believe that he wasn't smart enough to say, that wouldn't be a good idea. I got to clean that up before I put a kid in it. I mean, that's the rules. That's the logical rules. And so he just shows his own hypocrisy and duplicity in this idea that he's doing any true analytical kind of viewing, any honest viewing of what it is to be alive. And I've made this point before, but you could see it's sort of just screamed out at me when he used the word thrive in his moral landscape book. Because it's such a bullshit term. thriving. Yeah, what does that mean? I mean, it's just so ambiguous and so useless as a term. Thriving. You know, the white supremacists, when they owned slaves, were thriving. I mean, it just is a useless term in terms of any kind of ethics or ethical landscape. It's just meaningless mush. And to reduce life to this balance between thriving and suffering. He seemed to get the suffering part. He could figure out what that was. But he seemed to put all this value on some notion of a thrive. You know, as if there was such a thing. And there really isn't, without the costs that come with your comfort. And you know, not to be able to figure that out. He just showed in his conversation with Benatar that he just doesn't really understand that the value landscape, and that'd be another word for moral landscape, that's what it is. It's a value landscape, and you can't usually take much value out of the landscape without pulling it out of somebody else's mouth or ass. And that's just kind of the truth. So, you know, in that context, so I'm just thinking about, it's 10 years doing this, and, you know, I would like to have more to show for it. And, you know, I have all these other projects. Like I said, I think I'm making real progress in the physics argument, in the sense I've gotten more and more details and better arguments. So if any of you people are interested in physics, there's a Draft Physics channel. And I would appreciate a conversation with somebody who thinks they can defend the religion that I would claim is conventional physics. There's not much science in it. So anyway, so part of me thinks that's still a way of gaining some notoriety, where I can actually start arguing with more than the commenters, imbeciles on YouTube, and actually start arguing with people that have some sort of public standing, to create a more intense and productive environment, for whatever I can contribute. I need to stab more important soldiers and such. I just need to, sort of wasting my skills in a way. Fighting the water boys and whatnot. I need to get to the real game. Get to the real, whatever, however you want to metaphor it. I just feel like I'm kind of in Goliath's footprints. I haven't even gotten to Goliath yet to even take a shot at him. It just seems like an awful long walk to get to the giant you want to kill. But anyway, it's the way it is. So I mean, it's not all bad. It's just that things aren't what I had hoped to be. Well, I guess I didn't hope anything. That's the wrong way to say it. I really didn't have any expectations, frankly. But I guess in some vague part of my brain, I didn't think I'd be 10 years later still having to argue basic facts and, just going through the tedium of, redundantly making arguments. And, but again, that's not really what I've done, because through time you sort of refine arguments and you're able to make them a little more clear and say them a little bit better, and to construct the arguments a little better. I thought I did that sort of in the last video. There was a little place in there where my brain pointed out that you could take the line "life is suffering" and you could interpret it to mean two kinds of things: the suffering you're going to that's going to happen to you, and the suffering you're avoiding. And that's kind of an interesting. I thought it was good brain. I said yeah, that was a good one, Gary. It did all right there, because it gives the idea of life as suffering more meaning, and I think it's more to the truth that Buddha was talking about, in the sense of getting to the truth that our ambitions and our desires are as big a problem as our vulnerabilities. So the stuff pushing us through our own desire is just as big an enemy, as the stuff of other people's desires beating us down or enslaving us, or life itself diseasing you and crippling you. I mean, we're just as crippled by the ambition as we are crippled by the stuff that steals from your minimums. And maybe there's a better way to say that. The corruption of our taste by eating too many desserts, and therefore we don't find the meal satisfactory anymore. So even that's a kind of way of saying it. We're spoiled by very unfruitful comparisons and experiences that give us a taste of something that we would have better off not seeking, better off not knowing that something twice as, like, there was something twice as good as chocolate, but it was twice as bad for you. It would be better. You'd kind of be probably better off not knowing it exists. That kind of thing. So that was a less articulate way of just getting to that idea that you could say something like, life is suffering, and you can understand it that, again, that it's not just the suffering you endure, it's the cost of the evasion of suffering. It's how expensive getting out of suffering, or not its suffering, is. That not suffering is not cheap, because our tastes and our ambitions are high and expensive. We're high maintenance by desire. Our desires are, they sort of they can go in an infinite direction, in a sense. And you see that people fall into those traps. You see, millionaires moaning the fact that they're not billionaires. People who have very comfortable lives, complaining, because they have to walk too far to get their mail or something. Trivial impositions. Just because their standard of what they're entitled to or they should have is so high. And their knowledge of some idea that they're missing out has seeded their brain and corrupted it. So the modern mystics sort of did a video on this about how, in terms of viewing history and saying what's our quality of life versus historically, and certainly, historically they had less expectations because they were spoiled less. They didn't have light bulbs, and they didn't have internal running water, and they didn't have all these things. But if they had them for a week, it would have been a real problem to go back to their normal life, because they'd be spoiled by the knowledge of what they should have and what they think they deserve and are entitled to. And so I think that's a problem even without direct exposure, just the fact that we have an imagination. And you can always imagine the best day of your life being forever or something. You can always imagine it not raining when it's raining, and you can always, So even no matter what circumstance we're in, even if we were in an unpleasant past where there was it was a lot dirtier and messier and inconvenient and laborious, you could still imagine just peace and quiet and warmth and comfort, and what I'm saying. You can just imagine a nice sunny day and nice fresh air and whatever, just the simple things, and you can imagine some kind of perfect day even in a less than sophisticated environment. So, long way of saying you can, our basic needs are just those, just to be comfortable and relaxed and unthreatened by some, whatever, the bill collector or the repossessor, or the bits of life that get harassing, threats of lawyers coming after you and things. And that's really the base condition, is not to be harassed, not to have to be picking parasites off of you or whatever, not to be itchy, or irritated. And that was always a problem. I imagine people could always imagine feeling better than they do and not being burdened by, some nagging disabilities or encumbrances or burdens of their life. Tending to the horses and doing this and doing, all the chores they had to do. So I imagine they could still imagine being free of that. Anyway, a long way of saying that, outside of some ideal environment, we are kind of just doomed to have to struggle with accepting that a portion of our life is going to be drudgery and uncomfortable and maybe substantially miserable. And the fact that that's okay with people too, it's just they don't have much of an expectation, because for them, I guess there's only one standard, and the standard is, I'm stronger than you. I played life better than you. I won, you lost. I'm going to beat you. You. So they're just comparing it to the other people and saying, I can do the flu in 3 weeks. No, I can do the flu in 2 weeks. It's just some kind of contest. I can have my appendix removed twice. It's like they're in a competition to say. It's like when people talk about the olden days, the old farts. And, we had to walk 17 miles to school, and we had to eat gruel, and they beat us with metal rods, and bad touch all over the place, and they just keep making their little horror stories bigger and bigger, because it's really just some sort of competition to say, I'm tough and I'm strong and I'm not a pussy and I'm not a complainer. And so yes, in that context, if that's winning, is doing this, I'm not a pussy, I'm not a faggot or something, it's just such bullshit. That psychology is just so stupid. This defining greatness by how much shit you're willing to eat. Oh, he's a great shit eater. He can take it up the butt, all day long. And that's sort of what people are doing. They're climbing over each other to be able to win the prize of, you're such a fucking asshole. I mean, you really are just so bored. And so that's part of the thing you're fighting, is these traditional notions of a good game, playing a good game, being a winner, succeeding, being a great human. The definitions are just, they really have to do with somebody being a clown, an idiot, just caught up in it. A hamster running in his little stupid fucking wheel. And look at that hamster go. Look at him go. Wheel's not connected to anything. There's no, it's not making any energy. He's not doing anything to make the world a better place. He's just, I can really run in the wheel till my paws are actually bloody and fall off, because I'm a great hamster. Nah, you're an asshole. Anyway, so there's some philosophy. So this week just didn't happen. It's just, I'm working on it. There's little bits. It's just, I hope to get to a point where these videos will have a little more substance and be a little more useful. and the cause and all that. But until then, you'll just have to, it's what it is. I know I keep saying stuff like that. I'm just emphasizing. It's not that I'm not aware that I have to up my game in terms of I have to play some bit of their game. I have to try to look like something. I don't want to use the word attractive. It's in this context. I mean, something good to eat. It's probably a bad way to say it also. Something worth people's time, that kind of thing. And obviously, in the context of the world we exist in, crap is what most people value. And I don't want to actually become a piece of crap. I just want to find some way to imitate crap, to be able to get the job done, to do what I have to do, to succeed in, moving the agenda forward and all that crap. So, I'm just trying to evade criticism, but it's okay if you want to be critical. I am horribly distracted, but most of my distractions there's a method to the madness, I think. And it's also, I'm just not, getting old. I'm tired of it. And, and the world's getting worse, and the people are getting dumber, and, it's not it's not a very fun project. And it's just the truth. I'd like to just be doing creative, fun things, rather than having to do this save the future shit. But I know I have an obligation, since I know the future exists and I know it's in trouble. There's an obligation, and part of the obligation, as I've pointed out, is to myself, in the sense that I fully understand that I'm only here because nobody fixed the future in the past. The past let it go. They let all the stupid wrong things keep going on, and that's why I got born into it. It's the very reason is because there was no me in the past trying to stop me from having to exist either having to exist at all, which is, stupid. But I mean, if I'm going to exist, there was no me in the past pointing out that it's obvious the nest is filthy. It's obvious the playpen is unsafe. It's obvious that you either make the world a better place or you have absolutely no justification for endorsing this game. You either make the playing field safe or you just can't. There's no justification. And they're not trying to do either one. They're at first not trying to just deal with the fact that there's no good game to play, really. And even if you take the worst bits of the unfairness and the deserve has nothing to do with it, even if you fix all that as best you can, the game itself just has no point. It's just kicking balls into nets and shit. It just doesn't mean anything. It doesn't make anything. It doesn't cure anything. It doesn't fix anything as a game itself except our own problems. It just feeds our own disease symptoms. And it's just best to end the disease. But like I said, even if you can't understand that argument, or you can't accept it, or you just are obstinately going to reject the truth that life isn't purposeful, if you're going to accept plan and understanding that we have all the tools, we have all the controls, we're pulling all the levers, to leave it broken, there's just no excuse. You either make a world worth birthing people into it, or you're an asshole. There's just no way around it. You're an asshole. Okay. Yeah, it's good enough. All right. Anyway, so so sorry. Not much of a video, but I'm not really. I'm a bit low battery kind of problem. But anyway, I'll be back. I'll be back. Probably. Or maybe not. Maybe this will be the end. maybe maybe it's my last whimper. I mean, it's just that who knows thing. You can't. It's just so. Once you get to a certain age, there starts to be this 4 or 5% chance you're going to be dead next year. It's just there. The snake eyes are now on the dice, and you can roll them anytime, and that sucks. I mean, it just sucks being at this another vague jeopardy that exists in your environment, and you don't have any control over, and you just have to accept that these nuisances will fall on you with more regularity, and that some of them can be grand pianos, not just nuisances. Don't like that. Anyway, I don't like it, and so I'm going to say I don't like it. I'm going to actually complain about it, and you can call me pussy for doing that. I don't care. I think complaining is the thing that something rational does. A rational thing complains when things are shitty, and I think it's shitty that we have to exist in a world where you can be certain of so little, and you're guaranteed neither fairness or deserve. I mean, that just sucks. Sucks. Alright, so now it's enough, maybe. I'll declare it enough, whether it is or not. It's just a matter, I'll just say. Till next time, and such.